that embassy stuff, just the trauma, So I mean, I know there are people who listen that have been to embassy a few times and reject, and it's very traumatic. And you just need to know that's the only power they have. You just refuse the order, and that's all they can do.
That's the only power they have. And keep in mind that I didn't want to go home depressed. I was really depressed the first time. So this time I was determined to go home feeling who really I was. I mean, I wanted to go home feeling on top of the world so that I can actually have enough strength to plan my next strategy. Regardless, I mean, this shouldn't be the end of the road, even if,
so she doesn't hold your destiny.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I got it.
Trying to ruin my career. I went ballistic on her because at that point, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah, like whatever, man. I don't care.
I had a chance that she could change her mind if I go blunt on her. I told her, you're trying to ruin my career. Can't you see I made a first class and this is an Ivy League school? Do you know I'm going to study this, that? Are you really for real to try to ruin my career? Are you really trying to do that? She actually, I kept on using the word real and real. I think she was shocked because no one has ever spoken
the vocabulary like that now.
Before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't a common word she hears. She looked back and she was going to call security and
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Lost Lagosians, a podcast covering topics about Lagosians, Nigerians, and Africans in diaspora, as well as trending topics and challenges facing Africans that are living outside Africa. I'm your host, Brother Mike. We have with us today a very special guest that I've been meaning to talk to for some time now. We go way back, coming up from the ranks back in the days in Nigeria. So really excited to have him on here, and you guys are in for a special treat. It's very exciting, very energetic, and very, very funny. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our guest to our audience. Hello, sir. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Mr. Ogo-Oluwa. Thank you for the kind words you've actually laid forth for this episode. I'm really hoping I can actually match up to what you said. Let's get it rolling.
What part of the country are you calling from?
I'm calling right now from California, somewhere in the Silicon Valley.
Oh, good. Yeah, that area here is very expensive. Is that true?
Oh, it's super expensive. And then most of the things that makes it expensive actually doesn't really worth what the expense really is. I mean, we're talking about the same 3-bedroom apartment or 3-bedroom townhouse or a single family you find elsewhere, probably 50 miles away. And you find it for like a third of the price or a quarter of the price of a house. So you're talking about homes with a mean average of $1.1 million here. I think that's pretty much too much on the high side for the average American.
Yeah. So New York, California, in your opinion, which one is more expensive?
Well, it actually depends on where in New York you are and where in California you are. Yeah. I think it's a function of what part of this state you are.
Even the part of the state. Wow. Okay. So some parts of California can be cheaper, like you said, 50 miles away can be a little cheaper than.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. But the weather, though, is always sunny in California, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's one great thing we do enjoy here. You don't have those heavy snows from the East Coast blowing with the heavy winds, traffic. You pretty much have it all good here in terms of weather. As long as you're not in Los Angeles, where you have lots of traffic, everywhere else, it's pretty good for the weather. I mean, you get a lot of sun, to be quite honest.
So is the weather tax, is that what they say is you pay for weather taxes? That's why the homes are very expensive?
Well, I've heard that as well. I'm not quite sure that really ties in. I think it's just the fact that we have lots of companies here who are readily available to employ people and lots of startups. So it's more like we've got, I'm trying to get the right word for it. I think it's called economy of labor. So you've got lots of companies here who are willing to employ with lots of jobs. So, and because of that, they expect people to actually flock in here. And with limited housing, you expect the prices to ramp up. I mean,
Demand
they're not
and
going to
supply.
expand the piece of land. Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. No, that makes sense. But you didn't always start out as a Californian. I mean, you were actually a Lost Lagosian. So I guess if you don't mind us pivoting and kind of going back to the genesis of how someone from the dusty roots of Lagos ended up in the Silicon Valley, is that something you're willing to shed some light into?
Oh, why not? Why not? If it actually pops one or two things in people's ears and kind of encourages one or two people, you never know what situation they are in. They might be in similar situations or not too distant situations for mine. That could really help. Yeah, so I'm not sure where to start from, but I'll just pretty touch base to my time in Lagos. Pretty much going to a university or attending a university like the University of Lagos. And an average Nigerian who lives in Lagos doesn't want to go anywhere else outside Lagos. He just wants to pop out of the country. So the average Lagosian just wants to get out of Nigeria. Maybe you can talk about the average person in maybe Kogi State or Para
Abuja, or wherever. What did that part?
Wherever.
Yeah, because they want to come to Lagos. Yeah.
So this is very typical for every average Lagosian. They want to move. So I'm just one of them. So it's a case of this is the norm. You just want to move out of Lagos. And the best route for someone like me was to be a student. And I still think that's probably the best route for anyone in today's world. Being a student in the foreign land is probably the easiest and the cleanest way to actually leave Nigeria, or as you say, lost in Lagos. Absolutely, yeah. In my case, I think it was pretty much right before I finished my NYSC.
You went to Unilag though, right?
Oh yes, I went to Unilag. I think it was right.
Akokite, right?
Oh, there we go. I think it was pretty much when I was my final year. I started laying down the ground to actually leave without doing an NYSC. I just really just wanted to leave, even without doing an NYSC. And I decided applying to schools in New York, schools in the US, and also in the UK. I focused mainly in the US, pretty much because I felt I could actually hit a good scholarship to leave. That was actually pretty much my best bet. However, I did get one of the Ivy League schools, and I felt really good that this would be a good ticket for me to get out of Nigeria. I mean, an average student wouldn't be able to get an Ivy League school, Cornell. So I felt this was a very good ticket. But here comes the real problem, which is the same concern every average Lagosian has, the funding. How are you going to get the funding? How are you going to convince the embassy that you are going to study? How do you convince them how you're going to make a source of funding for your finances? I think that was my real worry. And I think that's the worry for most students. Getting the admission after working very hard could actually come, but to actually fund your move is actually where the real problem is. And in my own case, I felt because I was going to an Ivy League school, I felt the embassy would be a little bit relaxed, seeing that to actually gain admission to an Ivy League school, you really have to be good. And having graduated with the first class, I felt, okay, I put one and one together and felt this should work, but it wasn't so. And I did learn a couple of things along the way as well. So I would recall those days, and I'm going to go very low now in terms of how we grind these things out back then. So those days, we actually, what we do is, when you get the offer, we actually start running for the I-120. I can't remember the word again. Is it I-20?
It's I-20. I think
that
was
the magic. Yeah, I-20. That was the magic card. Once you have an I-20, you feel on top of the world. And so I had this I-20, and I felt, okay, I was going to take my chance at the embassy. And, back then, I think this was in 2000 and 2002, early 2002. And back then, it's pretty tough trying to get a slot to the U.S. embassy. I mean, they open up at 7 a.m., 7:30. But to actually get a slot to get in for that day, you have to be there about 4 a.m. So
there's no appointment or pre-appointment.
There's no appointment. For students, you just show up.
You just show up, yeah. That's what I recollect.
And you can bet that there'll be hundreds of students already there from 3 a.m. or some who probably sleep there overnight.
Wow.
It was pretty rough, really, really rough. I actually couldn't believe my eyes. I left home around 4 a.m., got there around 4:45, 45 minutes trip from mainland to the island. And I actually found people there. And what really amazed me was at that 5 a.m., I found people who were actually selling snacks.
Wow.
It felt very strange to me because I felt I was in a different world. But at the same time, I felt this was a great opportunity to get out of Nigeria. And I felt I was actually closer to being out of Nigeria, to be quite honest with you.
Your mind wasn't in Nigeria anymore. Your mental state was already... Because I remember then I used to see you in the cafe where we used to jam each other when you go and browse, and your mind was like, you're one of those guys that your mind was like kind of already not in Nigeria anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I was already in the realm. I was no longer thinking at the same level with people I moved around with.
Totally.
I actually saw myself already being in the US.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty much how I felt people should think. You actually start thinking of like how you would do when you're already in your next level.
Your mind has to shift.
Your mind has to shift to that point. Yeah, correct. So my mind was there already, to be quite honest. And so I didn't mind getting there for 45 and trying to get the slots. And then you get to queue up, and then you find touts still coming up as well. And by the time it's about 7:30, you find this young white gentleman walking into the embassy with police escorts. And then you start feeling something is wrong here. Something doesn't feel right. I left my home 4 a.m., woke up 3 a.m., left my home 4 a.m., got here 4:45, stood on the line to actually, in my own country, and if a foreigner in my own country walks into where I've actually walked like 2-3 hours, spent 2-3 hours to get in, just walks in briefly, I'm like, something doesn't feel quite right.
And a lot of the foreigners are actually quite young, actually. I mean, they are not like, a lot of them is just maybe they are interning, some have like a first degree. They didn't hustle like we are.
Absolutely.
Like we did, yeah.
And I actually feel some of them probably don't even have a first degree. I think they're just, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And because they just feel, yeah, I can actually do it. And then they pop them in. The truth is that most of these guys don't really want to come to third world countries. They would prefer to go to European countries where they can have good sightseeing, good security.
So it's one of those things where they have bonuses to go to Nigeria.
Absolutely. I think so. I'd say the young ones who don't mind adventures are the ones that actually pick up that.
True. Very true. Very true.
Yeah,
very
so
true.
I mean, and to be quite honest, I just got my first passport ever. My passport was clean, and that was my first mistake. My passport was clean. I haven't been anywhere else in the world, and the passport was just about 2-3 weeks old.
So you didn't even go to Ghana? Because some people, I hear they'll go to Ghana just for the sake, and then they'll come back, or they'll go to Cameroon. You didn't do any of that? I
didn't do any of that. And I think that could have helped, but you just never know. But for some people that I do know of, it did help them. I mean, they walked into Cameroon, they walked into Cotonou, to Togo, and then they went for a day trip and they came back. So they had their passport not looking so virgin like mine. I mean, my passport was just about 3 weeks old. So you can think about that. So they probably felt this is someone who's desperate. That was the first key thing I figured out. That with a clean passport, 2 weeks old passport,
no experience.
You look desperate. Yeah, you look desperate. Yeah, it pointed at, it gave a feeling of I look desperate, but I didn't know then. I just felt I was doing the right thing. I want to do the right thing.
And you got an Ivy League, which was very hard to get in anyway.
Oh, absolutely. So I felt I was in the right path. That was the key thing. But as time will have it, I walked into the embassy, got my chance. Haven't been there since 4:45 a.m. I got my chance pretty much around, it was roughly about 3 p.m. or 4 p.m.
What?
And keep in mind...
Like in the evening?
Oh, like in the evening, yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely. Keep in mind, I haven't had any food all day. So it was technically saying I was fasting at the embassy. And I felt... Now, keep this in mind. I felt I was already leaving Nigeria. The moment I entered the embassy, I felt this is it. I'm already leaving Nigeria.
But you didn't get any food to eat or anything, or you brought something with you, like a bread or gala or anything like that?
Okay, so that was my inexperience. So I felt maybe I'm going to get there. I got there very early. Within 2 hours, I'm in, I'm out. That was something I didn't know. I mean, pure inexperience. So I got in eventually, and I finally got my chance to see the...
Consulate.
Yeah. At about 3 p.m. or thereabouts. So that's roughly about 3 plus...
that's 12 hours. 12 hours from when you wake up.
Oh, yeah, 12 hours, yes.
Yeah.
So, and pretty much I was fatigued. I was tired. And...
Standing.
I'm very young. I mean, I was just probably like 21 or 22 then, even though I just finished from ULAG. I looked pretty much like someone who was young and desperate to just leave. And I was tired. So the consul officer could figure out that this person looks famished, number one. I mean, I've been out there for like 12 hours. And then you just probably had your lunch. You're looking refreshed.
Under AC. Under that Lagos AC.
You can think properly. I was probably fidgeting my first time, thinking, having heard all the stories of rejection. And
I haven't seen people being rejected in front of you.
Oh, that's it. I mean, the 3 people in front of me got rejected. And to make matters worse, I was actually dressed up in a suit. Why I did that, I don't know. I probably felt I could impress them that I'm a responsible person.
Wow.
But I don't think that really works today. Now, I think looking back, I wouldn't say that's a good idea. Anyway, I walked up to the consul officers and he just asked me for my documents, looked at everything, looked at me and asked me why I want to go to Cornell. I told him to further my studies, and he didn't ask me any more questions. He looked at my documents and he mumbled some words. That was really ridiculous. He mumbled some words which I clearly didn't hear him. Maybe it was the accent, I don't know. He mumbled some words, and the next I heard was he opened my passport, he flipped through, he was looking at if I've actually traveled before. That's what I figured out. He flipped through, he figured out that, oh, this is a virgin passport. He probably saw the date of issue as well. And once I saw him doing that, he just opened up one empty space, took a stamp, and just gave me those dreaded stamps. And packed up everything, put my document in the passport and say, thank you very much. I don't think you're qualified to receive a US visa. In my mind, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do right now? And I said nothing. I looked at him and I felt confused because I was hungry, famished. And that made it worse. The fact that he just said, sorry, you're not qualified or something like that, and packed my document to me. I kept on staring at him. I didn't say a word. I took my documents and walked out of the embassy.
So no protest. You didn't protest it.
Oh no, that was my first time. I had no. I mean, I was just a pure fresh guy going to the embassy. So I walked out very hungry. I'm very, very unhappy, very sad. I went home that day. I didn't eat for the whole day again because I just really started depressed.
Yeah, it didn't depress you.
It was very depressing. I haven't woken up since 3 a.m. and so, but then here comes where the average Lagosian should always keep at it. So I said, the following day, I said, okay, I got rejected. I'm going to give it a shot again. This was back then. Back then, you don't have any restriction.
I know now. I know. You just have to go. Yeah.
You just have to go. And the key thing then, I think then it was about 7,500 naira to actually apply. That was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
That
was what, like $100 or something? Or it wasn't
something like that, yes.
Yeah. And in naira, there was like 75 or something like that.
Absolutely, $75 to 75 naira to $1.
Yeah, something like that.
So but it took me a while to get that 10,500 naira.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't working.
You're right.
So at that point, I felt, okay, I'm going to give it another shot. And so the second time, this time around, I really felt really determined. And what I did was, I did what most people would do. I was giving the advice that I shouldn't go back with the same passport again.
Get another one.
So for some reason,
those are the days you can get another passport.
I flung my passport away. I deliberately threw it away so that I can actually get another one. So it was a case of deliberate.
How much was the passport then?
It was pretty cheap then.
Yeah, 2015 or something. Yeah,
it was pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So I kind of got it missing. So I got a new passport. Or rather, I hid it somewhere that I can't get to it anymore.
Yeah.
I went for another passport, went back again, and this time around, I knew that I don't necessarily have to come in very early. I could just come in around 7 a.m., find my way to the front.
You learned. Yeah,
absolutely. So I was well prepared this time around, so I wasn't famished. I was strong enough, and I was really ready for the consul officer. This time around, I was really armed. And once again, it got to my turn after about another 9 hours or so.
Wow.
It's always like that. So I was ready for that anyway. And during that period, a couple of people, 1 or 2 people did get the visa as a student.
In front of you?
So I felt, not in front of me, but
in the group, you just see somebody like jumping.
Coming out.
Yeah, happy. And so, yeah.
But I did see the person had a bag of luggages, a bag documents. Of documents. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Probably my father's houses, my father's bank accounts, my uncle's this and that. I had none of those. Yeah. I was just going with my I-20. That was my magic card. I-20 with my first degree, having a first class from electrical engineering, and I felt really good.
And you also had a letter of sponsorship from the school, like you got scholarship, I think.
Oh yes, something of some sort.
So the scholarship just said you don't need a bank statement because you have.
You don't need a bank statement of some sort. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that.
I remember you told me that.
And that they would fund me, and that.
Yeah. So the second time.
The second time I was really armed, and I felt really good about myself. The first time I felt fresh and unprepared. Yeah, but this time I was really well prepared. So this time was an elderly lady. She should be in her mid-40s thereabouts. So he wasn't a young guy. And She looked at everything again. She looked at she actually, that I was going to Cornell. She gave a sigh. Cornell, she felt Cornell was an Ivy League school. Perhaps none of our kids can actually get or nobody in our family probably got a glimpse of the gates of Cornell, not to talk of getting an admission. So she gave a sigh. Cornell, she felt good about that, but she didn't smile to me. She started flipping through my passport again, and then she started seeing the empty pages. At that point, I knew something was going to happen. Then she asked me why I wanted to go to Cornell. So I told her, that having made the first class, I was going to further my studies, and I want to become an academician thereabouts. Which kind of was true because I wanted to do a PhD after the master's. And then she said, she didn't ask any more questions. She just went through the normal routine. I'm sorry, I have to deny you. The moment she said, I am sorry, I have to deny you, I lost it. I lost it because I just got a new passport, haven't gone through it. Was it not money for me then? Haven't paid another 7,500 naira. Oh, I really, really lost it. And I'm sure people behind me will be like, oh, this guy's going to spoil the show for all of us. And then I went ballistic. I said, sorry, do you say I'm not qualified?
Why?
Are you trying? And I told her right away, are you trying to ruin my career? I went ballistic on her because at that point, I had nothing to lose.
You're like, whatever, man. I don't care.
I had a chance that she could change her mind if I go blunt on her. I told her, you're trying to ruin my career. Can't you see I made a first class and this is an Ivy League school? Do you know I'm going to study this, that? Are you really for real trying to ruin my career? Are you really trying to do that? She actually, I kept on using the word ruin and ruin. I think she was shocked because no one has ever
the vocabulary
like that before. Absolutely. It wasn't a common word she hears. She looked back and she was going to call security and felt, I guess security gave me up. She now stood calm. She got my agitation. She could understand clearly why I was agitated because she had no valid reason to deny me. I actually wanted her to tell me what exactly is why you want to deny me. And the idea was this. I actually wanted to frighten her. That was the idea. Because you are actually playing with people's lives. That was the way I saw it. I mean, forget the fact
they do that every day. Until
absolutely.
They are just ruining people's lives.
I understand I'm going to your country and you have a choice, but you actually play with people's lives. That was the way I saw it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot and maybe that will change your mind.
Or help the next guy.
Or perhaps help the next guy. Absolutely. She felt startled. She couldn't say a word for like some 10 seconds. She looked up, she looked at me. She now said, am I accusing her of trying to ruin her career? I said, oh, yes. What exactly are you trying to do if you're not going to ruin my career if you don't give me this out? What exactly are you trying to what will you achieve? Is it going to make you happy? Or what makes you really happy? I think at that point she felt bad. I could see it, but she was trained. Yeah, she felt remorse, but she was trained to hold a straight face. And I had a feeling that after my time, she probably took a break or a time out to reflect on who really she was.
So you made a difference then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually, and she went on and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I still have to refuse you." But she said it calmly and nicely because at that point, I could feel I really hit her. And I felt I've got nothing to lose. Let me just see my peace of my mind. Well, she gave me my passport and the document, and I told her that I'll do my passport, but just know you actually attempted to ruin my career and it won't be ruined. I took my things and walked off.
Oh, you told her I won't be ruined?
Oh, I won't be ruined.
Oh, boy. That nature. You have leave out.
At that point, there was nothing else she could do.
Wow.
The only power she had was to give me a visa or refuse the visa. And she was going to refuse me. So she has no more power over me.
Wow. That's good because some people, sorry to interrupt, but some people, that embassy stuff, just the trauma. So I mean, I know there are people who listen, they've been to embassy a few times and rejected, and it's very traumatic. And you just need to know that's the only power they have. You just refuse your deny. That's all they can do.
That's the only power they have. And keep in mind that I didn't want to go home depressed. I was really depressed the first time. So this time I was determined to go home feeling who really I was. I mean, I wanted to go home feeling on top of the world so that I can actually have enough strength to plan my next strategy.
Regardless.
I mean, this shouldn't be the end of the road. Even if so
she doesn't hold your destiny.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I got it.
I left, and to be quite honest, I felt good, even though I was refused.
Yeah. That reminds me of the second time I went to the embassy too. When I got there, it was the same thing walking, but they didn't see me till about 6 p.m. or 6:30. I think I got my turn like 6:30 or 6:45. I've been there in the morning, and I was just waiting. I had some, just like things to read, and just you stand in the embassy outside in hot Lagos sun.
Absolutely.
For like 4 or 5 hours. Then they say students come in, then they give another 3 hours. So I mean, it was crazy. Same thing, refusal. But then the guy was like, "Oh, Michigan. I was going to Michigan." Then he's like, "Oh, Michigan is too cold. That why am I going to Michigan? Like, what kind of excuse is that? But anyway, go ahead with your points, though. I feel you. I feel your frustration. Yeah. At the time.
At that point, I had nothing to lose. I walked out, went home. The people who was close, my family members knew I was refused, but they could see a difference in me. I was not depressed. The previous time I was really depressed for days. I was depressed for days. I wasn't depressed. I felt good, but I felt bad for myself at the same time. I felt it was like end of a dream. I cannot go back. I cannot go to the US before I do my NYC because I was trying to actually short circuit the NYC. I didn't want to do the NYC. So at that point, I resigned to doing the NYC. And luckily for me, I was posted to Oyo State. I was very lucky. I was thrown to Oyo State, so it wasn't too far from Lagos.
Okay.
At that point, I didn't give up. Even in the camp, I was a little bit cold in the camp. People could figure out that.
Okay. So even when you were doing your NYC, you're kind of
when I was doing my NYC, I was a bit cold. I wasn't really myself, but I was actually strategizing to the point that it got so bad that we had lots of people who actually despised the United States of America. That was during the Iraqi war. US invading Iraq. Kuwait. I remember that.
Afghanistan.
People despised the US, and surprisingly, I actually spoke against them for despising the US. So I told them point blank that if the US gives you a visa today, won't you walk in? And they felt good. They said, yeah, that's true. And from that point, they started calling me American boy in the camp.
Wow.
Because funny enough, even though I was depressed because of what the embassy did to me, I knew that, look, if I was given a visa today, I would leave the camp and go. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be frank with yourself. And I do tell those people that, look, if you are given a US visa today, despite all this criticism you are giving the US, you wouldn't even tell your parents. You would dash off. So stop criticizing what you want. Stop it. And that was what I was trying to bring home and drive home to them, that I didn't tell them I was refused, because if I did that, that's going to be a different topic for me. I just kept to it that, look, the US is the place to be. You're just kind of wasting your time in Nigeria in the sense of there might be less opportunities for you, or you may not really grow as a person as you should grow in life. People grow in Nigeria, don't get me wrong, but some people are actually meant to be in the US. Some are meant to be in Nigeria, some are meant to be in the US.
That's right.
And if you are meant to be in the US or in another country, and you know it, then you should go for it.
That's right.
That was pretty much my story for the US Embassy. At that point, I blanked out the US Embassy. I mean, I wasn't going to try it anymore.
So you never tried, like after the second time, you never tried?
No. I think I tried a third time. I'm not sure, but I don't think I actually was serious about it anymore. So I shifted my focus from the US to Canada and the UK. And finishing NYC, fair enough, I got a good job. Globacom just launched then, so I got a job with Globacom as a electrical engineer, and that I felt very good. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to save up some money and pay part of my school fees going to the UK. And I felt good about that. Okay, if I can't pay half of my fees, save up some money. Even when my friends were having good sumptuous lunches, I didn't have lunch. I just went down
your money.
Absolutely. I just felt, okay, this goal has to be achieved. And that's the key thing. If you get defeated, if you lose the key thing you want, and you have no drive, when you get defeated and you lose your drive, you've lost it all. Don't lose the drive. Keep the drive. That was what I had. I still had the drive. So I still had the drive to save as much money as I could, so I can actually pay part of my fees to the UK or to Canada. And as God will have it, I actually got a scholarship to the UK, the Shell Centenary Scholarship. It was a very big scholarship. Paying for my fees. They got my visa for me.
Wow.
I pretty much or do anything. They got my flight tickets. And there we are. I found myself in the UK. That was actually the beginning of the journey, because
and the rest is history, as they say. I mean, because somehow here you are, at the end of the day, you are in California.
Oh, absolutely.
The mysterious ways that God works. What I was going to add is that when I was in Yabatek at the time, so first time, second time, the third time, I also had that same feeling that you got. For me, I went again the third time, and the feeling I got was kind of like depressive. I was actually crying. Like, I don't know why, but I was just like, second time I was actually crying. I was depressed. I was like, oh my God. So I planned to go into Japan And this is something a lot of Nigerians do. They all try to get out. I'm like, I want to go to Japan. But with Japan, there was a scholarship too. There are some scholarships that people don't know about. Like
Yeah, I
Japan
remember that.
and all these other countries. They have New Zealand. There's some, but it's very quiet and hush-hush. So
Very
I found
quiet,
out
yeah,
about
hush-hush.
Hush-hush.
Well
I
known
heard
to the
about
federal
it.
government. The federal government is fully aware, but they don't release it to
They don't release to people. It's those that know somebody else. So somehow I got wind that one of the cyber cafes to go and browse at the time. So I applied to the Japan embassy, whatever. But the US embassy, again, if you recall, is one of those things where you just show up. So I was refused the second time. I think it was in March. So I was going for spring quarter. It was in March. But August came around again. So I was like, okay, August around. Although then they told us don't come for a year or 18 months or 6 months or whatever. I was
okay,
just
they started changing the rules then. Don't come back for us another 6 months.
Bro,
yeah,
like,
they started changing the rules
I don't even send, man. The third time I was just like, I'm just going to go. So when I got to the embassy, I had my documents with me. Where they're checking it, I just like threw all my documents on the floor. So I created a circus. So, and there were lots of students. Nigeria, man, a lot of people just want to leave Nigeria so bad. Like, there were a lot of students there. I'm talking like probably hundreds in queue.
Mm-hmm.
But because I knew if they had checked my documents there, they would have said I should go back. And I was like, I'm not going to go back. So when I got to the place they were checking, I intentionally dumped all my documents on the floor.
Whoa, what was that all about? Was that a trick?
It was a trick so that by the time I'm picking up, because there's so much, it's like, I don't know, back in the days when you go to Ikoyi to check your JAMB results, when the JAMB result first come out, there's always a lot of students. It's just crowded. So the embassy then, like you remember, it's always crowded, So when I dumped my documents there, I created a scene because my papers were everywhere. So I had to go and start pick paper. At that time, they've already moved past me. So I ended up not, like showing. Otherwise, if I had not done that, I would have had to show my documents. And they would have told me you can't come again, wait for another 1 year. So it was just one of those things they're talking about determination and dedication. If you are determined and you are dedicated, you are going to try and find a way, no matter. But this was a very good conversation. As we wrap down, do you have any final thoughts? I mean, of course, we're going to have you on the air again some other time to tell us more of the story, because I feel like, knowing you personally, there's a lot of gaps which we don't have time to get to today. But down the road, hopefully in a future episode, we can kind of continue conversation with you. But as we wrap up, do you have anything you have to say or any parting words, I guess, for the listeners?
Well, regarding the topic we've discussed today, and I do know most Nigerians are still making these attempts. What really I can say about this is, even when you make several attempts to the country that you want to secure a visa, keep in mind, you can always take a detour. There's always another path to get to the same place.
Not a straight road.
Absolutely. So if you don't get to that same country through getting a direct visa, that could be a detour. But do not take wrong detours. Take the right detours. Maybe you might end up going to a European country to study. From the European country, things are easier getting to the US, or perhaps you want to get to the UK. Take a detour and don't feel bad you're taking a detour. Several people took detours. In my own case, I didn't take deliberate detours. I mean, it was a case of I got a scholarship to the UK, I went there, and here I am in California. However, if you see things not coming up for you straight away, take a detour. Or sometimes take a pause, a step back, reevaluate the situation. Perhaps maybe you need to spend a year or two more in Nigeria before you take another leap. But don't just give up. Don't go into depression mode or don't get depressed. That is the biggest mistake you can make for yourself. Getting depressed means you've lost all hope. You've lost everything about it. Don't get depressed. Don't lose hope. Find something to keep you active and take a detour or give it another try. I think that's what works best in this visa scenario. And I really hope it works for everyone.
No, thank you. Thank you for that piece of advice. There's also this article I was reading a couple of days ago about the U.S. Embassy saying that touts are jeopardizing the chance of getting visa. So the fees of the visas are a little bit more expensive. So it's kind of a very difficult situation out there. And I really hope that, if you are listening, that you can kind of, take your time, make the right move, and hopefully you will be successful. So guys, thank you for being here. That's all the time we have for the episode for today. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on all the social media platforms at Lost Lagosians. Other than that, thank you so much for being here, sir. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.